Josh Paunil, PhillyMag.com, Birds 24/7, Josh. So do you think the Eagles have legitimate interest in grabbing a quarterback with the 8th pick or moving up to get one?
Well, if it's Jared Goff or Carson Wentz, I absolutely think they have legitimate interest at number 8. But, I don't think it's very realistic to expect either of those guys to fall to number 8. I think it would be pretty shocking if they made it past the 49ers at number 7. Even if they make it, one of those guys makes it down to 5 or 6, there could be another team who wants to trade up in front of the 49ers who would take them. So I think it's pretty unlikely that the Eagles are able to get a quarterback at number 8 if it's a Wentz or a Goff. And I also don't think it's likely that they're going to trade up to get one. I just, talked about this a little bit last week. I just don't think the caliber of these two quarterbacks, they're just not worth trading up for and kind of mortgaging your future and giving up a few high-level picks for one of these guys. Paxton Lynch, I think he's an interesting case because, to me, he's one of those high-risk, high-reward type guys, but he really isn't a guy that you would take at number 8. I think that's pretty high for him, especially when you compare it to a guy they could take, like a Vernon Hargreaves, cornerback from Florida. Seems like there's a decent chance he would be there. So I think it's more likely that they would take a quarterback maybe with one of their 2 third-round picks or later in the draft. I just don't think that there's going to be a high-quality guy at number 8 who's worth taking with that pick.
Yeah, now Lynch is a guy, now you wrote about him over at Philly Mag, and he's a guy that if he's on the board at number 8, is the reason you work him out, Josh, so that other teams start calling you if he's on the board and your spot comes up?
Well, one thing that Doug Peterson talked to us about at the owners' meetings is that he really wanted to work out, maybe not necessarily every single quarterback in the draft, but you really want to work out all of the draftable, kind of the top quarterbacks. Just so you can kind of get a sense of them if they ever come up in, maybe free agency or trade situation. I think the most likely scenario that they would take a Paxton Lynch is if, they trade back, or maybe if he falls a long way and they try to trade up at the end of the first round. There aren't a whole lot of scenarios where I could see them taking a Paxton Lynch, but I really think it's just about due diligence. If you have the time, and obviously they have the time to work out these quarterbacks, and it's the most important position in the sport. This is the one position where if you're going to work out everybody, this is the one position where you do that. So I don't think it's likely they would take a Paxton Lynch, but I do think he's one of the more intriguing prospects in the draft.
Josh, it seems like so many people, especially nationally, are kind of saying, like, it doesn't make a lot of sense. You've got Bradford. You just spent a lot of money there. Why would you go dip your toe into the quarterback pool here with 2 quarterbacks making almost $70 million combined? At this stage, are you a proponent of drafting a quarterback if there's one there at 8?
If it's Wentz or Goff, absolutely, because, this is the one of the reasons I like talking to you, Mike, instead of these national guys is, what we know is that Sam Bradford is essentially on a 1-year deal. He'll either be cut or get a renegotiated deal. So there really is no definite starter in 2017 or after that. So if you have a guy like Wentz or Goff who falls to you, then it absolutely makes sense to take him because, you don't have a definite plan at quarterback going forward. Really the only quarterback that will be on the roster even next season is Chase Daniel. And he's not the guy that's going to be your franchise quarterback. He's the guy that's going to be a good backup quarterback for you who, maybe if he has to, he can play a game here or there, help a young quarterback learn the system, but you really don't have a definite quarterback going forward. So if you have a guy that you really like who's a franchise caliber type quarterback like the Goff or Wentz, they're absolutely worth taking because you're really only tied to Bradford for 1 year, and neither of those guys should really start in the first year anyway.
Well, okay, let me throw this scenario then. If Bradford plays as well as he did over the final 7 games, do you need to draft a quarterback?
If Bradford plays, if Bradford doesn't get, if he just plays like the last 7 games.
Yeah, he plays just the last 7 games. That's what kind of player he is, let's say, over the full season. He kind of equates to that player. And if he plays better than that, you certainly don't need a quarterback. But if he just plays at that level, is that level good enough to say, you know what, we're okay with a quarterback with Bradford playing at that level?
Honestly, Mike, that's an excellent question. I'm not sure about that. That's one of the reasons why I'm a proponent, or I really like the deal that the Eagles have with Bradford because I think he'll continue to improve. And so I think that's why I was good to bring him back to give him the chance to continue to improve. But if he just plays at the level of the last 7 games, I'm not sure that that's a guy that you want going forward, especially at that price tag. I mean, he definitely improved the last 7 games, and I mean, if he gets a better offensive line, which it looks like he will have, if he gets more help from his running back, then you could definitely see a scenario where the Eagles win a playoff game. But I'm not sure just at that last 7 games if he doesn't improve, then I think it would still be. I think it may still be worth taking a quarterback if he doesn't get better than those last 7 games.
Let me get your thoughts then. Vernon Hargreaves, we talked a lot about him on the show earlier in the week. I'm not sure if do you think he gets to 8? Because if he gets to 8, is he the clear guy? Of all the guys that would be in the 8 spot, does he seem like the most logical and the guy that makes the most sense, the best fit?
I do think that there's a chance he gets to 8. And, we talk a lot about the quarterbacks, understandably, with how important the position is. But Vernon Hargreaves, I think, is one of the more realistic options at number 8. He's a guy really, the more film I watch of his, the more I hear about him from other people, the more you like him, the more you think that he would really do well in Philadelphia. And I think he's a fascinating guy because he's only, I think, about maybe 5'10", 200 pounds. So, relative for a football player, he's not a huge guy. But I think it's funny because he's an aggressive, attacking type of cornerback that Jim Schwartz would like. Even though he doesn't have the prototypical size, he has that mentality of attacking, getting after people. I mean, honestly, on film, it's kind of funny to watch him play sometimes because he's almost bullying guys who are half a foot taller than him and who may have, 40 pounds on him. But it's just that mindset that he has, the skill that he has. He's a guy that he's really good. I mean, I think he's best at press coverage, getting up and disrupting guys, beginning of the routes. But he really can play in man, zone, whatever scheme you want. But I think he'd be a really good pick at number 8 if he's there. And I also think it's realistic that he's there at number 8.
Yeah, to me, he's the best fit, makes the most sense. I'm a little skeptical of drafting tackles and asking them to play guard right away. Maybe that's just me, but a lot of times I feel like, some of these guys are used to playing tackle, and then you move them around, and it seems like, you don't get the best out of a guy, especially when you're drafting that high. I feel like you got to get a guy that's almost an instant impact player.
Yeah, and the thing that I think is almost unique to Vernon Hargreaves is that he could be both the best player available and fitting a need. I mean, people talk all the time, should we go best player available or fit a need? Well, honestly, he could fit both categories at the number 8 pick. And he would really give you an upgrade at that position. I mean, I think it's been 5 seasons now since the Eagles have had a cornerback that went to the Pro Bowl. And he's a guy that you have Rodney McLeod back at safety. He's a young guy that, you would hope would be around with the Eagles for a while. Malcolm Jenkins obviously had a very good season. They signed him to that extension. Eric Rowe, I think, will develop into a good corner. So if you have Vernon Hargreaves, you can really have a really good young core in the secondary. And he really is a guy that you could help Jim Schwartz build a very good defense around if you have a guy like him at corner, and then, maybe Nolan Carroll and Eric Rowe battling on the other side with one of them playing the slot when they need to. So really, if you give Jim Schwartz Vernon Hargreaves, I think it's fair to expect some good things from that defense.
Yeah, and I'm interested to see the competition at corner, because we were asking about Rowe. It looks like this new regime looks at him as a corner when they brought Rodney McLeod in, obviously. But I certainly think that getting another corner, a higher level corner, is something that this team probably is looking for in this draft.
Absolutely, because, say, best case scenario, say Eric Rowe turns out to be a good corner. Mm-hmm. I mean, you still don't have another guy who you think will be here 4 or 5 years from now. I mean, Nolan Carroll is going to be back on a 1-year deal. Who knows? He played pretty well last season, especially at the money that they were paying him. So, Nolan Carroll could have a pretty good year this year, but it's not like you have a long-term solution at the position. It's not like you have a guy who you can say, okay, 4 years from now, this is going to be my guy. And obviously it's hard to find that type of long-term certainty in the NFL. It's hard to find guys like that. And although, maybe there is some risk in Hargreaves, he's about the shortest thing you can get to having a long-term, high-quality cornerback for the Eagles.
Josh Paunil at PhillyMag.com, Birds 24/7. There's a couple intriguing guys. Hackenberg they're going to meet with next week. I haven't heard Connor Cook's name, but, Josh, some people thought he could have been the number 1 overall pick going back to last year. He kind of fell off a little bit this year, but he would be a guy that, might be interesting. Do you think a 3rd, 4th round Hackenberg, Connor Cook type of guy is a better move than getting a guy at number 8?
If it's not Wentz or Golf, I don't think they should take a quarterback at number 8, and I do think it would make a lot more sense to pick someone in the later rounds. A guy that interests me, Christian Hackenberg, I understand the appeal, especially because he's a local guy. Who doesn't want to see a guy who played at Penn State play for the Eagles? But the inaccuracy concerns me, the inconsistency. Obviously I understand the offensive line was an issue, and he could have had better quality around him, whether it's your coaching or the players that he was with. But to me, there's a huge question mark as to whether he can be consistently accurate in the NFL to be a good quarterback. I think a couple of guys that are interested. One guy that I'm interested in that hasn't really gotten talked about much is Jacoby Brissett, and he's a guy really that could be picked in the later rounds. I'm talking the 3rd day, 5th or 6th round. He's a guy that's very raw, big arm. He's one of those guys where the arm strength is there, the talent is there, but can you put together the footwork, the more pro-style elements of an NFL offense? Brendan Allen's a guy that I've seen mentioned from Arkansas. He could be one of those mid-level or mid-round guys. You also have Dak Prescott from Mississippi State. He's a guy that his stock was really rising, but then he had the DUI arrest, I think it was, which really hurt his stock. So there are really going to be a few different options, really, whether it's the 3rd round, there are 2 picks there, the 5th round, there are 2 picks there. 2nd and 3rd day is going to be very interesting to see who they come out with, and that's why I think they will come out with the quarterback at some point in the draft, because there are a few different options of guys who really could develop into starting quarterbacks in the NFL.
Well, they've taken a lot of guys out for dinner, and we'll see.
Yeah. I'm waiting for my turn.
Hey, what's your thoughts on Cardale Jones? I hear a lot of people who like him a lot of people not interested at all. Some people, think that he could go as high as the 2nd round.
Yeah, I'm not as big on Cardale Jones. What kind of concerns me was just he only had, 3 games the first year that he led Ohio State to the national championship. So I didn't see a whole ton of improvement that you would want to see from those 3 games to when he came back. Especially with the offseason that he had. Yes, he was competing for a job, but I really think you wanted to see more out of Cardale Jones at the beginning of the season at Ohio State. They had other good options at quarterback, obviously, but he's a guy that he has the strong arm, but I'm not sure if he'll be consistently accurate enough, kind of like a Christian Hackenberg. He's a guy where the numbers, the size is good, but can he make those throws, the 15-yard curls or whatever the throws are on an every down basis? Is the ball placement where it needs to be every play? It's really what it comes down to is that consistency, and that's the thing that concerns me with Cardale Jones. And that's why I don't think I would touch him until the 3rd day.
Yeah, and by the way, Paxton Lynch, 6'6", 244. He's got a big arm, and he's a big guy.
Yeah, you really can't get a quarterback much bigger than Paxton Lynch. I don't think they come any bigger than him.
Yeah, and another kid is the kid from Indiana, another big kid, 6'6", and a kid from Wisconsin, 6'5". So there's a couple big late-rounder guys or mid-round guys. So that quarterback position, keep an eye, because all indications are they're going to grab somebody. It's just whether it's going to be with that 8 pick or somewhere in the middle. We'll have more coverage. And, of course, Josh, check out PhillyMag.com, Birds 24/7. He's got a lot on the quarterbacks that the Eagles met with this week. Great work, Josh. Always a pleasure, pal.
Thanks for having me, Mike. Have a good weekend.